So first of all, thank you for joining us. I greatly appreciate you taking the time. I know that you're and I wish I knew how you did it, that you kind of just show up on the leaderboard and that's it. And then every once in a while you pop up on the call, drop some gems, and then disappear. So I'm grateful that we got to pull on you to pour into the team here. So we'll jump right in. And I'm eternally grateful because I've had the pleasure of working both closely and just alongside. So I've gotten to kind of steal a lot from you in regards to business overall and just overall approach. So let's just start from the beginning. I know you didn't start with FFL. So kind of what brought you to insurance, and then why did you make the transition from where you were, which was pretty much top of the food chain, to FFL, where you quickly rose to top of the food chain again, not surprisingly?
Yeah, I mean, well, thank you, first of all, for having me on. And anytime I take this very seriously because I think it's so important to pour back in, and I get so much out of everybody else too. They don't realize, some people just don't realize you don't know what you don't know. And there are people who say things sometimes that just, they say it one way or another, and you hear it that way and you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I say it that way? And it's just, it's incredible. It's amazing. So I really do take this very seriously. And I take it also so seriously because I can say that the training is a direct correlation to my success, and I don't miss it no matter what. So I just want to, I'll briefly talk about that. So back in 2012, I got my insurance license in 2012, and I started working for a supplemental insurance company. And they were like, the way that it was advertised was that, you would get these leads, and the comp was 35%, and the leads were, they could have, saved more trees' lives if they had just handed me a phone book, because it was just a stack of paper with names on it. And the names were, no joke, like in alphabetical order, like in address order. So I'm just like, why didn't you just say to go through the phone book? Because that's what they handed me. It was stacks of leads like this. And it wasn't people who asked for help with insurance. It was just names, yet they called them leads. And I felt like that training that I got there was excellent. But I can tell you, it's very difficult to sell insurance to somebody who didn't ask for help or ask for anything to do with insurance. It's very difficult. So I did that. Honestly, that was hard work. I mean, you think, being in the field for 12 hours a day or whatever is hard, but I was on my feet going door to door constantly. Selling these supplemental policies, and the underwriting was pretty liberal, but the policies were like $18 a month. So if you wrote 5,000 in a week there, you were like, a celebrity. And so I had some really good training there, though. I definitely have to say that. And then I took a year off to have my daughter. And then in 2014, I went back to insurance, and I responded to an ad on Craigslist. And it seemed like it made so much more sense to me, because it was like you had all these companies that you could represent, as opposed to just representing one company and not really doing the best that you could for the client. So I got involved in this company. Now the comp wasn't much higher. It was like 45%. But the truth was as hard as I was working the first insurance job, I was doing pretty well. And I remember taking home $800 to $1,000 a week. And when you're not taking home anything, and then you're taking home that in addition to, your spouse's income at that time, and then you got 2 kids, you feel like you got it made. And so I went over to this other company, and I felt like it was really good because I was able to, write a bunch of different carriers. The problem there was that I then met Mark Mead, and I talked to Mark Mead for like a good 6 months, asking him almost every question that I could before I came over to FFL. And I did well at the other IMO. I did pretty well, but there was nowhere else to go. Like, if I'm number one in the company and nobody the year after is is rising above that, then you kind of got to wonder what the best of the best is. And the other thing too, on top of that was, there just wasn't a whole lot of support, and there was nowhere to go for like additional agent training. So I was kind of the best that I was going to be. And I had not written an annuity there, but I also didn't really have anybody to ask how. So that's kind of how I, came over with, and, with Mark Mead, and really the rest is history. And that was in December of 2015. Wayne, it looks like you're muted.
Okay. So what an exciting history it's been. So at this point, is it 4-time or 5-time Hall of Fame?
Give me 1 second. I don't want to lie.
Right. I don't want to lie. It's too many to count.
18. No, hold on. 1, 2, 3. I missed a year. I think I missed 19, 20. So it'd be 4. And then this would be 21. Okay. So 4 out of 5 years.
So 4-time Hall of Famer, which is, I can tell you from experience, is an amazing feat. And you alluded to the training a couple of times that you got both from the other place and both here. And I know because I've heard you on the phone, and I'm just like, I just can't do that. I don't know how she does it. I can't do that. So let's start there. What are some of the things that you do on the phone that are completely different than everybody else, even though you plug into the same training, and it's not at all against the grain of what we train people to do, but you somehow have made it completely unique and all your own and highly effective?
So that's great. So phone training. Now I will say this: the very first insurance job that I had, the training was great. The actual sales training was great, but they didn't teach dialing because they were door to door. So I didn't learn how to dial until I got back from, having my daughter. And the thing that I can tell you about dialing is kind of threefold. The first thing I have to say is that what I did was I found about 3 people who I really felt like they matched my personality, as far as the recordings were concerned. And then I took those recordings and I listened to them pretty much until they made me sick. And I didn't listen so much to the content of what everybody was saying, but I listened to the psychology of how they set the appointment. Like when I train on setting appointments, I'm very rarely training on what you're actually saying. There are so many things that are broken down once you pick up that phone that are 100% psychology from the beginning to the end. And we're not, and it's so funny because a lot of people are like, well, I said what you said, but you didn't say it the way that I said it. And you didn't say it with the inflection that I said it. And you didn't say it with the cadence that I said it. And that's why you're not having the results. So listening to somebody that you identify with, and then listening to that on repeat, the same way that all the lyrics to your favorite song, the same way, you might be able to recite a joke, you should be able to recite dialing, and you should be able to handle any objection. The other thing too is you kind of just have to get used to failing on the phone if you're new. And if I'm directing this all towards, newer agents, is you just have to be comfortable with failing. It's okay. You just have to fail forward. And so I have some agents that'll call me and they'll be like, well, what would you do with this? And it's funny because my answer is never really any different, but the question is always different. I always just acknowledge what they say and go back to setting the appointment. And it's so funny to me because recently here we've had like a lot of competition in our area. So I had this agent call me and she said, it seems like I'm dialing this lead and then somebody else has already gone out there. And for some reason, my rebuttal to that always works. And it's nothing that profound, but if they're like, oh yeah, we already had somebody out here last week when we took care of it. And I kind of just stop and they just sound confused. And I say, right, that's weird because I'm actually the official mortgage protection specialist for the area. And so I'm not exactly sure what that was. But anyway, my job is to get this information out to you. And if for some odd reason someone else came out and set you up, I'll be the first one to tell you, but I have an obligation to get this information out to you. And, it's true because 99% of what I see is not what I would have done in the first place anyway. And if I do see that they're taken care of, I don't care if I'll just leave it that way. I really don't care. I mean, in the beginning, of course, I wanted to replace every policy I could get my hands on, but now I'm like, okay, well, if that's really what they want and that's really good, at least I got an opportunity to get in the home. And you gotta know with the training here, you're gonna find so many more opportunities in the home than just a dang mortgage protection, policy. You'll find money, you'll find life insurance that's garbage. I was just in an appointment before I got on here. And I did the mortgage protection for the kid's mom. I say kid, he's like 31, but I did the mortgage protection for the kid's mom. And then he was like, hey, wait a second. Can you look at this life insurance I got her a couple years ago? I think it's too high and blah, 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 blah. And it's just, it flows. Like there's so many other opportunities. And a lot of these other agents are just so linear that you have to keep your eye on that greater prize. And I didn't mean to, go off on that tangent when it comes to the dialing, but the dialing is, it's almost funny how simple you can be with people and then get them to be on your side. And also to, again, just what you're saying is not as important as how you're saying it, and listening to dialing training on repeat when you're in your car, when you're in the shower, whatever, listening to it all the time. Otherwise, because the money is made on the phones. Understand that the money is made on the phones and you're just going to the house to pick it up.
That's funny because I've dialed with you. Can everybody else hear that echo? Or is that just me? No,
we can hear you.
Okay. And I never picked up on how psychologically driven conversations were. I always knew that it was different and your tonality was completely different and your approach was completely different. But I never knew that how intentional it actually was. So, I mean, I just learned something as well. So let's go inside of the house. And I'd imagine that it's a lot of the same things because you're extremely effective in the house too. And then we'll go to, obviously, to the fact that you find an absurd amount and move an absurd amount of money. But if we're in the home, what are some of the things that you do in the house? Because you say that the training is different and you'll find more opportunities, and a lot of that training at this point in everybody's career kind of comes from you and the things that you curated. So, but what are some of the things that you do in the house to set yourself apart and set yourself up for success?
So my approach, which has changed over the years, it changed. Obviously, senior citizens have always kind of gotten scammed or always been a target for scams. But it seems like everybody now is kind of a target for scams. And then you got the whole coronavirus thing. So for some reason, I changed my approach in the home, like I think ever since last March. And I don't mean I changed my whole in-home. What I mean is I changed how I set the table when I go in. So I do this every single time without fail. And you can change the wording, of course, to make it your own. But this is what I do all the time. I get into the home. I say, hey, my name is Danielle Byrne. I have a full insurance practice here in Chesapeake, Virginia. This is my card. On the one side of my card, you're going to see my personal state license number and you're going to see my corporate license number. And then on the other side of the card, you're going to see all my contact information. And then I take the pressure off immediately. And I say, even if I don't end up helping you today with mortgage protection or final expense, whatever the reason is I'm there. Even if I don't end up helping you today, I want you to know I'm right down the street. You guys can always call if you have questions about Medicare, you have questions about regular life insurance, I'm just a phone call away. So I just want you guys to know that you'll always have a contact instead of calling an 800 number. And 9 times out of 10, they always go, oh my gosh, that's so great, blah, 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 because we hate calling them. We have a question about Medicare, blah, 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 blah. Just don't let it derail you from that moment, because then they're going to start telling you about their brother that's in a nursing home and, you know, all this other stuff. And the truth is you do want to help them to the degree that you can, but you don't want it to take you off track, because obviously it can. So I do that immediately, and I take it away almost too, because I'm just letting them know, like, if I don't end up helping you today, this is my information for the future. So I do that immediately. Then of course, you know, keeping the chatter down. I don't do like I used to do, where I used to like try to find common ground and like chit chat and everything. Cause now at this point I can find that common ground. I can chit chat while I'm asking questions. I don't need to, you know, go over to the Wall of Fame and look at all the grandkids or anything like that. I really don't do that anymore. So if it's husband and wife, or just, you know, husband or wife, I'll just say, you know, so again, you know, I'm contracted and licensed by the state. I've got about, you know, at any time, 15 to 20 companies that I work with. There are no medical exams, but there are medical questions. So it's important that I don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. I'm going to definitely ask you some questions today that are going to help me to make a professional recommendation for you. Once I make a good professional recommendation for you, my goal is that you understand it and that it fits in your budget and doesn't take food off the table. Does all that make sense? And then they usually say yes, because it does. But I think that the way so I remember somebody saying they handed their card when they walked into a home. And for me, for some reason, I kind of cringed when I heard that. It felt so cheesy to me. But there is something about doing it now that I almost rely on, and for some reason makes them feel more comfortable. I have no idea why people think if you have a business card that you are legitimate, but they do. And everybody can get them on Vistaprint. Everybody can get them everywhere. But for some reason, if you have a business card, I don't know, you got your life together apparently. So that's the impression that I get from these people. So I'll kind of pause there real quick in case you got anything you want to expound on, and that way.
No, I mean, you eliminate, and I don't know if everybody else caught it, but you eliminate so many objections by setting the table the way that you do. The I want to think about it. The I need to look at my budget. Like so many objections are eliminated before you even start. Aside from, and I never give my card either. Probably the same reason you shied away from it. I never did it because I never heard anybody that I liked enough say it. So now I'm going to start doing it. But there's just so much that you eliminated that makes probably the rest of your in-home kind of not like taking candy for a baby, but that much more, I guess, that much more pleasurable, for lack of a better way to put it, because there's less pushback throughout.
Yeah, and it's a much nicer, you know, process. And, you know, the other thing that comes with experience, that if I could like hand it to you on a platter, you probably still wouldn't take it. And I'm not talking about you, Wayne, I'm talking about like, you know, your newer people, is that you always have to remember a few things. When you ask about current life insurance and they tell you what they have, they're wrong. Okay, there's going to be 1 out of 5,000 people that know exactly what they have. I can't emphasize that enough. That is why it makes sense to get those policies out. It is so important. And if you have somebody that says to you, well, why does this matter? Or, you know, well, why is that important? Or they want to question you at all, you have to reposition yourself as a professional and say, listen, I'm regulated by the state. If I make a recommendation on insurance, I have to have a baseline for what you've already got in place. Yes, I understand this is mortgage protection insurance. I understand that that's life insurance. I still need to make a professional recommendation. And a lot of times though, when you present yourself like that in the beginning with that level of confidence, they're usually not questioning it. And there's going to be a time where you know that you did everything right when they start pulling out stuff and asking you about it, and you have no idea. Like I had a client that was pulling out like his life alert bill. Like, well, can you tell me what to do with this? Like, you know, and I'm like, no, you know, and you know that, but that's how you know you've earned their trust, is they just start pulling stuff out. Well, wait, does this mean anything, or does that mean anything? And that's how you kind of know you've made that transition into being trustworthy. And a lot of times too, you have to remember when people say that they're fine, they have no idea what they're talking about. They don't know fine. They know being a mechanic. They know being a shipyard worker. They know being a nurse. They know all of the different, careers that we see these people. But I mean, I was in a home with another agent recently, and they just kept saying over and over and over again how fine they were. And then I don't know what happened, but something broke through. And I mean, when I tell you statements started coming out, the one guy was paying $443 a month for an IUL. The wife was paying $250 a month for an IUL. They had annuities that had caps on them that should be against the law. They had some other term insurance. I mean, it's crazy how for some reason, when you get past that barrier, then they just start flooding all of this stuff, onto you. I know that when you're there and you're new in the beginning, you're trying to get a check, you're trying to get that original sale, but you don't have anything if you don't have trust.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I mean, speaking of trust, you talk about pulling money out of pulling statements out of the woodworks. One of the other things, and we recently had David Allen and Brad Allen both on the call.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was amazing. And I know that you're pretty well up there too. When you get to that point in the conversation and you're having that conversation, how do you make that transition? And then what are I'll just leave it at that and just kind of let you walk them through it from the time that you discover that there's money there to the time that you come back, and then we'll have you back to do your in-home at some other time.
Oh yeah, sure. So the as far as the money conversation, it can for me it has to be broken down a little bit further. So let's say, for example, that it's somebody who has a 401k that they had through an employer that they didn't roll over. So in a sense like that, I'll say, well, how come you haven't rolled that over yet? And open the conversation with that. But let me actually back up a second. So as I'm going through my client profile sheet, and yes, after this many years, I never walk into a home without a client profile sheet because it keeps me on track. I'm asking all of those questions. I'm not stopping at the part where they say they have an IRA or a 401k or a CD or whatever. I'm not stopping there. I'm going through the entire process and then making a recommendation for the insurance from there. I'm not a one sit, one closer annuity producer. If there's people who are and that's effective and that works for you, then God bless, but I'm just not. And so if I take care of the insurance and then I go back, I will often say, regardless of the position that the client's in, but typically it's a senior client, I will say, you are in a vehicle that, is exposed to risk, meaning, of course, that it can go up and it can go down. We have some state regulated retirement programs that you might qualify for. And they don't involve risk. And for the most part, they also don't involve fees. How much of that 150,000 are you comfortable losing? And from there, the conversation can get pretty rabid. I mean, you're going to have people that are going to say, they're going to come right out with it and say they don't like their advisor or they don't like the fact of losing. And then you're going to have people who say, well, my guy's pretty good. And, you're going to have a bunch of different things. The best situation is if you have an old 401k where there is no advisor. That way you can easily, get your hands on it and make some changes. But perking their interest with asking them how much they would be comfortable losing is important. It's kind of that golden question when you say, do you have anything else that acts like life insurance? And then from there, there's just a series of, approaches. namely, again, the takeaway is so important. Look, I don't know if I can help you, because the truth is you really don't know. I mean, they might have a brand new annuity that's within the first or second year, and maybe you can't do anything. Maybe you can't help them. Maybe they're taking out 15% a year from it and you can't help them because they're draining it too far. But you say something to the effect of, listen, I don't know if I can help you, but if I can, I will. And I definitely can't do that today. Today is my mortgage protection day. And, obviously I would want some time to put this together, run this past my team of folks that I have. And I always kind of lean on the fact that I'm not the best at anything. I always lean on the fact that I've got a whole team of people to give me a second opinion, because I do. I don't submit everything through Ask a Specialist, but I still use the team a lot to determine what's the best play for people. So, that's to me incredibly important. So I kind of answered the question, just not completely fully. Is there anything you wanted to hone in on there, Wayne?
No, I think the one thing that I want people to pay attention to, because they don't know you, would get lost in the fact that you're stop and start. When you go through the, I don't know if I can help you, how much of this are you? I think they may think that it's because we put you on the spot, but I need them to understand that that's exactly how you do it in the house, and it's intentional because you want to create those seeds of doubt in those moments where they question what they're doing, and that's probably what makes them more likely to listen to you, because it's more a natural conversation. Like, it's just something that just came up and I don't know anything about it, but I might know some people that do, that might be able to help you, that I need to talk to. When it's crazy, and it's just crazy that I know how intentional it is, and I've never asked you, which is probably why you've never told me, so I never picked up on that either. But now that I hear you say it, I know that that's exactly how it's done, and that's why you do it too.
And I'm trying not to do any kind of selling that first time. I'm just trying to kind of open up that door and say, listen, there might be something better for you. And a lot of times I pull this out too. I say, every season sometimes requires something different. You're going to be 70. Another thing too, and I can always come back and do this if you guys want to talk about this, I really, really, really hammer on required minimum distributions. I think they're important to discuss with the client, especially clients who don't know that they're coming. That can be a huge gateway to your credibility.
That's huge. And for those of you that don't know, our required minimum distributions are those distributions that when you hit a certain age, I think it's 72 now or 71 and a half, that you have to start taking money out of that 401k so that Uncle Sam can start to get his money on some of those taxes before they actually die and it goes to somebody else. Now, I know we started with the beginning of your insurance career, and throughout your career, mother of two, overworked wife, like many of the women that work at FFL. How do you, and then I'll open it up. How do you do it? Like, how do you stay Hall of Fame 4 times out of the 5 years you've been here? Like, how do you do it and keep everything afloat? Because the kids are well taken care of, husband is spoiled rotten. I don't understand it, and I don't have those responsibilities, so I could never pretend to walk anybody through it. But I'm hoping you could shed some light on it to some of the women on the team, and frankly, some of the guys that are supporting women in the industry and other industries.
So, full transparency, I've always said this on all of the calls. I'm very, very intentional about how I manage my life. And I've already decided, when it comes to my children, the things that are non-negotiables that I need to be there for, and the things that I am okay with not being there for. Now, my non-negotiable list is kind of high, but I will tell you this: I get no pleasure from doing my kids' laundry. Okay, I don't get pleasure from doing their dishes. I don't get pleasure from cleaning their room. That is why I have somebody that does that. I don't spend my time doing those things. That allows me to maximize the time for my kids. Now, please understand, that was not the way that it started. This was something that took a couple years to get to. And then once I had that, I was like, there's no going back on this. Because if you are a mom and you experience the mom guilt and you experience the need to be with your children, you know, helping them with homework, helping them with projects, all of that stuff, you're going to feel like your entire world revolves around also doing those other things. And that's where the hiccup comes in. So if I have to study with my son or do a project or study with my daughter, or my daughter wants her hair braided, then I can be available for those things. How I got through the last year with the virtual and everything, that would take like 6 hours, and I'm not even sure if I know how I did that. But you know, that it just feels like I have some kind of trauma related something from that. But so I outsource all of the things that don't bring me happiness and pleasure, and I make sure that I'm present for the things that do. For some reason, I mean, I really do get joy from bringing my daughter to gymnastics. Even though at this point we can't watch through the windows, we have to watch on an app, which is like so ridiculous. I still get a lot of joy from bringing her there. So like on Saturdays, I have to, I'll start my appointments later, or if I have childcare, I'll start them earlier. With my son, I like bringing him to tutoring and the other things that he does. Like I enjoy doing that. I don't want to outsource those things. Groceries are always delivered. And they are delivered at the time when the helper, the person who does the dishes and all that, they're delivered at the time that she works. I have her Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 to 5. And that's exactly how many hours I need for that level of help. The bathrooms, vacuuming, laundry, food prep. She does a lot of stuff. So it's not that I'm so great. I'm just intentional about taking those things out of my life that you know that aren't going to enrich my family's life and my career. So that's kind of the best way that I can describe that. You know, that's the best way that I can describe that. And then I plan vacations like really early and ahead of time. That way mentally and business-wise, I can get ahead of it and I can run extra and I can take care of extra things so that if I do get to go on vacation, I'm actually on vacation. Because the first few years when you're an agent, you take a vacation and you come back and you're just side slapped with so many different things. You're like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to relax. But that's not true. You can get it under control.
Got it. So intentionality, taking the training of being intentional to another level and applying it to everything else in your life aside from the business that supports the business. That
Exactly.
makes sense.
Yep. That's it. You just summed it up in a lot less words than I did. That's exactly true.
No, but I think they needed to hear. I'm very nuts and bolts. Give me the info up front and then I'll listen to the rest. But I mean, taking us through it, and for everybody else, it's still, I wouldn't have got it if you hadn't taken me through it. So I'm gonna, if you have time, open it up for a few questions because I know there's some out there. Mainly because aside from these conference calls, you're seemingly untouchable. So I'm gonna open it up for questions, and just unmute yourself, turn your camera on so Danielle's not talking to a blank screen, and fire away.
Oh, come on. Somebody's got a question.
I got a question.
Go ahead, girl.
Okay. When do I get started? I do have sure. Another thing. Oh, are y'all going to add property and casualty insurance?
Do you have to have property casualty?
Yeah.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Why not?
That's not something that we do. We're focused on mortgage protection, final expense as our bread and butter, and then the ancillary things that complement that. And then as far as how you get started, we'll figure out who your direct manager is and kind of talk you through wherever you are in the process.
Right now, I'm sorry, I'm still on spring break.
Okay, we'll get with you in regards to when you get started.
Would y'all consider adding property and casualty insurance? Because I'm also in the field of real estate.
It's not something that we're gonna add in the near future. But I work here, so that's a Sean Mike thing. But is anybody else?
Sorry, I'm just excited.
No, it's okay.
Is that
And
the
we'll
lady
get
from
with you
Sex and the
to
City?
Kendra, we'll get with you offline to kind of bring you up to speed and figure out exactly where you are.
She looks like the lady from Sex and the City. Oh my God.
Somebody told me that one time.
Okay.
All right. Kendra,
Sorry.
if you could go ahead and mute back out. Does anybody else have any questions about anything that Danielle's talked about today, or anything that you're struggling with in your business that she may be able to help and offer some insight into?
Yes, it's like, my name is John. I'm sure you know me. It's like when I like have appointments in home, I get so nervous. Then I get stuck with my words on what to say. So I don't know if you guys could help me with that.
John, how many appointments? How long have you been here, and how many appointments have you run?
Like maybe so far 3 or 4, and I'm really new, to be honest with you. So
okay, after your first 100 appointments, get back to me and tell me how nervous you are.
Okay.
Oh, and after you get $2,000 deposited in your bank account after 1 day of work, tell me how nervous you are.
Okay.
Who else? Anybody else have any questions about anything that Danielle touched on today?
I got one. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead,
Yeah,
Charles.
we can hear you loud and clear.
You know, one thing, I saw your video last night when I was looking at it, and some of the things that you said are really striking. One of the things I found out, once you bring that up, do you have anything else that acts as insurance? They're very hesitant to bring up the annuity. I'm trying to do it without, as if I'm, trying to dig their, their private life. For them to bring up, I got this and that. What's the secret to that?
Okay, just for clarification, are you talking about you bringing up an annuity,
Right.
or are you talking about them bringing up an annuity?
Trying to get them to bring it up, because once we do the inventory sheet, when you say, do you have anything else to act as insurance? Now this is our ideal time for them to bring it up. In most cases, I found out the older ones won't bring it up. So I'm trying to figure out an easier way to get to the annuity portion.
Okay, so my first reaction to that one is I do want to get into their private life, 100%. That's my job.
Right.
I want to do it in a respectful way, though, of course, and I have had certain people, even referrals, that are funny about telling me certain things, and that's okay.
Right.
And that's okay. It's kind of more the exception now than the rule, and that's okay. And sometimes you just have to comfort them and let them know that the reason you're asking these questions is so that you can help them. One thing that I'll say, especially if somebody's very standoffish, is I will tell them, hey, listen, I need you to understand everything you tell me today is 100% confidential. Okay. I understand. I don't care if you have $5,000 or if you have $500,000. But if you have assets that are planning to get transferred when you die, if I don't know what those are, I can't make a good recommendation. So anything that acts like insurance, I'm talking IRAs, 401ks, CDs that grandma left you in the bank. I mean, sometimes you gotta run the muck. I had a lady the other day who I said all that stuff to, and she goes, oh no, but I have investments. And I was like, okay, yeah, that counts, and so you don't necessarily want them to bring up the idea of moving the money, but you want them to give you something to work with.
Right.
You want them to give you something to work with. And sometimes it's going to take a little pushing to get them to get out of the seat. And sometimes you're just going to have to get bold and say, hey, listen, I'm not sure if I can help you with this, but there are some state regulated retirement programs that actually participate in the upside of the market, but they don't have the downside risk. I don't know if you'd even qualify for one of those, but you said it was Edward Jones, right? So,
Mhm.
all right, actually, while I'm taking down, Mr. Smith's driver's license information, why don't you go grab that statement? Yeah, I don't care if it's 3 months old, 6 months old, just go ahead and grab it. I know you got one lying around, and then you give them the work, and
Okay.
they'll do it. Trust me,
Okay.
you just have to get the guts to say it. They'll
Well,
do it.
I've had the guts a couple of times. I almost been put out the house. So,
Well,
I think-
if that's the case, then you need to debrief that appointment with your manager, and good for you.
Thank you.
I think a couple of things there, going back to the way that Danielle phrases things and the stop and start and the inflection in her tone where she's almost concerned, almost confused, almost, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I know some people that do. And then go back to the beginning, the way she sets up things when she walks in the house, positions them so that I would be surprised if when she asked that question that people weren't almost foaming at the mouth to tell her things because she set herself up. She acted as a professional throughout. And then when she asked that question, they have no doubt in their mind that she's there to help them and help them only. So they're basically vomiting any and everything that they have that might pertain to money or insurance or finances. Hence the Life Plus example that she used earlier, where they start pulling out mail. So I would go back and listen to this recording again in the beginning when she talks about her setup, and then some of the inflection, because again, it's not because she doesn't know you or she's talking to you in conversation now. It's intentional, the positioning and the way that she says things and the pauses throughout the conversation to facilitate that, almost create a sense of urgency and a desire for them to work with her.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Danielle.
Actually, though, Wayne, you just brought something up that I forgot to add when I talk about when I go into the home. This is important. I don't care if it's your first week or you're not licensed or you've been here for 5 years. When you're introducing yourself, let them know that you are here from the beginning to the end, and that you and your colleagues or you have had a lot of death claims. And it's important to tell them, listen, I've never had a death claim declined. When you use the word death claim, things got real at the table. Okay, death claim. It's important because
Thanks, Charles.
Yeah, that's important so that they know that you're there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, thank you for the question and being vulnerable.
That was good. Real good question.
We'll take one more question, and then we'll let Danielle get back to her day.
If there's nobody else, I'll ask one, but I want to.
Introduce yourself, sir.
It says right there in the bottom.
Okay.
You can read it.
Yvonne, you sound kind of masculine for Yvonne.
First of all, I want to say thank you. And that was good. I love how I've learned a lot from you, how to shoot people straight up, especially with final expense appointments. So thank you for that. And thank you for your time today. Definitely appreciate it. But I have one simple question. What is one thing, whether it's in the home, on the phone, just generally in this business, one simple thing, one simple tip that's gonna change somebody's trajectory when it comes to personal production, building this business, anything, just one simple thing that we can implement next minute and start making more money? What would that be?
That's a great question. What pops into my mind immediately? I think I'm on an echo. I don't know how though.
We don't hear it.
Okay, cool. The thing that pops into my mind immediately is have the conversations with the people that are important to you in your life and set the expectations right from the beginning about what you're going for, what you're looking to do, and the amount of time that it's going to take to get this thing off the ground. Because there are going to be cheerleaders in your life, and there are going to be people who really don't want you to succeed. They're going to act like they want you to succeed, but they really, really don't. Because if you succeed and you rise above them, then that means that they're not adequate. And if you're one of those people that happens to be blessed with people that are all around you that are truly, truly in your corner, that are cheering for you, that's great. But it's important if you're, married, or if you have a long-term partner, but you have to have that conversation and set the expectations about the potential for this career, what you're looking to do, and set the guidelines out up front, because you can dial, you can buy leads, you can schedule, you can do the training. But if you're getting a really hard time and not having the support on the other end, it's going to affect your personal life greatly, which then could leak into your business life. So having that conversation up front and saying, this is what I want. If you're not in my corner, leave me alone, you know, because there's a lot of haters out there. There's a lot of doubters. There's a lot of people who just naturally, oh, that sounds too good to be true, or nobody makes that much money. Like, I got news for you. We do make that much money, you know, and it's legal, you know. And I think that the most successful people in this business, you know, put their head down and they only listened to the people that were in their corner because they knew what they wanted and they weren't going to allow anybody else to hold them back. So I feel like that's the umbrella to all of the other things, because you could get good on the phones, you get good at buying leads, you can get good at running business. But if someone else in your life has expectations of you that you're not fulfilling because you're on this mission, that's going to cause some problems. So I would say, you know, set the expectations and how and why this is important to you.